talking to our listeners and followers here at 𝗥𝗟𝗃, they have already asked themselves this question: how long will it take me to become fluent in English? I actually have two answers for this.
Okay.
The first answer is short and boring, but it's true. And then I have a second answer that is a little bit more detailed. All right. So first, 𝗥𝗟𝗃, I'm going to give here my boring answer to this question.
Right.
And then I want to see your take, your opinion about this. So when a person asks me, 𝗥𝗏, how long does it take to get fluent in English? The boring answer and true answer is, it depends, guys.
It depends. Right.
Each person's reality is different. Some people take courses, others hire private teachers, others don't have the resources for that, so they have to learn by themselves. So there are many variables there. On top of that, there is also the natural talent or natural aptitude. We can't forget about that. People have aptitude and talents for many things. Some people are more naturally talented for languages, sounds, verbal communication. Other people are not so much. They might be more drawn to maybe math or numbers or logical thinking. But what I do believe is that anybody, regardless if you have a natural talent for languages or not, if you dedicate yourself, if you put enough hours, you will reach your goals with the language. Everybody's guaranteed to get there. But I think the only difference is that for some people, it might take longer, and for others, it might take a little bit less time.
Let me ask you, you said that in learning a language and when we talk that it's very personal, that it depends, there are many variables, right? What is a variable?
It's something that maybe influences an outcome. So many variables there are many things that are very unique from person to person. And those little things, those little variables can influence how long a person takes to get fluent. 𝗥𝗟𝗃, how do you usually answer this question? I imagine that as a teacher yourself, you've had students ask you, 𝗥𝗟𝗃, how long do I need?
I have this question asked. I try to show with my own example that it's a lifelong journey, that you never stop learning a language. It's just like impossible to learn everything. Every time, every new book I take, there are dozens of new vocab I jot down while reading. The same with movies, the same with songs, I don't know. Every day something new comes up. Just like recently, we were recording this podcast with Ethan, and he said a phrase, like from the context, because of my experience, I'm pretty well at guessing the meaning of the word, but I was really interested in the phrase, so I had to look it up, and I digged deeper, and it was so interesting to read the background, the story. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It will take you long to really cover this bulk of vocabulary, and you may start feeling confident early enough and still feel like you lack vocabulary, but you can speak confidently early. But when it comes just answering this question, no, it's a lifelong process.
I love that. And I agree wholeheartedly. It is a lifelong journey and process. I'm learning things till this day. Just like you said, I mean, even recording the podcast here, sometimes Ethan says something there that we're like, let me backtrack a little bit. So, it's good for our followers, but it's also good for me because I'm always learning new vocabulary and expressions, right? You said a nice word there, 𝗥𝗟𝗃. You said sprint. Learning a language, in this case, is a marathon, not a sprint. What is a sprint?
Yeah, if you remember your physical education classes at school, so you would run those sprints. This is like a short distance run, running on short distances compares to 42 kilometers. Is it 42? Yeah, in a marathon. Sprint is a short distance. Yeah.
You gotta be in it for the long game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It is true. However, I do want to give you guys today something a little bit more concrete when it comes to maybe changing levels in the language, and also how long you should maybe expect to reach a certain level. Because I find that what we are talking about here up to now, it's all true. Okay, guys, it's all true. But let me give you something a little bit more concrete so you can have an estimate of hours and maybe years that it might take you, okay? Now, this is the second part of my answer, Ksenia, that is a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to base this answer now on the Cambridge, on the University of Cambridge, actually, because I don't know if you guys know, but the University of Cambridge has been applying proficiency exams for, I don't know, over 100 years now. And they have been involved with language learning and language proficiency and testing learners' levels for many, many years. So they do know one thing or two about this. There has been many researches and conclusions about that. So on the Cambridge website, guys, there is a page there that actually gives the estimated number of hours a person needs to go from the first level of the CEFR, the A1 level, all the way to C2 level, which is the last one, the proficient level. And according to the Cambridge website, that number is 1,200 hours or 1,200 hours. So think of a beginner who has zero English to go all the way up to the last level, C2. That person would need 1,200 hours of guided learning hours and practice.
You were saying when you were introducing this Cambridge Institute, right? So you said that they know a thing or two about language learning. What does it mean when you say about a person or an institution in this case that they know a thing or two about something?
I thought you picked that up. Awesome. It's an expression that means actually that institution or that person knows what they're talking about because they have spent some time studying that subject.
So it's actually not one thing or two things, it's actually many things, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it's an informal way to say, hey, that person knows what he or she's talking about. By the way, my global citizen friend, isn't it frustrating when you learn a new word or expression in English, but when it's time for you to use it in real life, in a real conversation, you completely forget the new word or expression you learned? I know it can be really frustrating, but don't worry, because that's exactly why we here at Real Life English created the Real Life English app, because the app is the only place where anytime, anywhere, you can simply press a button and connect with another English learner anywhere in the world to have a short 4 to 8 minutes conversation in English. Isn't that awesome? And it doesn't stop there. You also have access to this podcast. You can listen to the podcasts there. We give you a digital transcript for the newest episode of the week so that you can follow along everything that we here, the hosts, are saying in the episode. And we also give you a few flashcards for you to memorize the vocabulary we are using here in the episodes much, much faster. We use cutting-edge technology based on spaced repetition to help you memorize the words you learn much faster. And the cool thing is that the app is free to try. All you need to do is click here under this video or in the show notes, or go to Google Play Store, Apple App Store, search for Real Life English and download the app from there. It is free to try and I really recommend it. Speaking of the app, we have a wonderful review from one of our app users. Let's check it out right now.
And the testimonial comes from 𝗙𝗨𝗟𝗟𝗏, who writes, "The interface is incredible. The face calls are great too. And the feeling of achieving the goal in the app is fulfilling. Well done."
Amazing. Eliseu, actually, I think it's Eliseu. I think it's Brazilian, we say Eliseu with a Z.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the wonderful review. And dear listeners and viewers, do it just like Eliseu and try the Real Life English app. I'm sure you will love it.
There was a YouTube video I recently watched from the Polyglot, and he said exactly that. He was debunking the myth that the adults are much harder to learn a language. For adults, it is much harder to learn a language than to a kid, right? And he was saying that actually that's not true. It's just like a child is exposed to thousands of hours of the language until they start speaking, compared to adult English learners who just have 2-3 hours per week, ideally, of English classes, right? And I really liked this example. He said, let's compare. Take a 3-year-old toddler and an adult, put them together and make them be exposed to Spanish, for example, for 300 hours. After that, an adult would naturally pick some phrases and start speaking or building simple sentences, and a toddler would not be able to do so because, we adults know how to learn, and kids, they have this privilege of learning naturally, but they have also this privilege of having time. We don't have so much time right, for exposure of the foreign language we're trying to learn.
And that's exactly the point. It's not so much about how many months or years it takes a person to learn English, for example, but how many hours that person has accumulated over time of exposure, studying. That's exactly my point here. Before I continue, Ksenia, you used a really nice word there, debunked. What does it mean when you debunk a myth or you debunk an idea?
To debunk means to prove something wrong. So there is a myth, right? Or a stereotype. To debunk a myth means to prove that this is not true, to show the actual picture. Yeah.
So going back to the Cambridge table there, and they also detail, Ksenia, how many hours approximately it takes a person to move from one level to the next. And the answer is around 200 hours. So the good news is, guys, is that those of you listening to us and watching us here, very likely or probably you are not beginners. You are not at A1 level. So you might already be, let's say, in the middle of the road, right? Maybe A2, B1, or even B2 level. So all you got to do is think about it like this. Okay, so if I am an intermediate learner nowadays at B1, I can expect to spend around 200 hours to get to the next level, which is B2. Maybe that's the level you need. Or if you are a B2 learner and you want to move to C1, around 200 hours of focused studies and practice will get you there. Now let's make some math. Let's do some math here. 200 hours, provided that if you study Monday to Friday for 1 hour, okay? 1 hour, Monday to Friday, that's 5 hours a week. Times 4 weeks in a month, that's about 20 hours per month. So if you follow that regime and then you have the weekends off, but Monday to Friday, 1 hour per day, in about 1 year, you will have accumulated those 200 hours or 240 hours, something like that. You see, so 1 hour per day, Monday to Friday for a year is already enough for you to accumulate those 200 hours to maybe go to the next level. This is in terms of time, but of course we have to talk about the quality of those hours, how you are spending those hours. But to give you guys an idea, there you go. I mean, about 1 year, yeah, starting 1 hour per day to move from one level to the next. And that's exactly what you just mentioned, right, Ksenia? Adults don't have this opportunity as kids do to spend a lot of hours per week because they have other responsibilities.
Like a luxury.
The luxury, that's a great word. Yeah, so think about it like this, guys. If you study English maybe with a teacher or at a school for 1 hour per week or 2 hours per week, that's just too little. If you just depend on that, on your classes with your teacher once or twice a week, it's going to take you a long time for you to see considerable development. So you need to complement those 1 or 2 hours with more hours by yourself. Thankfully, Ksenia, nowadays we have a lot of resources. We have our podcast here that you can listen to. Like it's already 30 minutes or half an hour, 30 minutes or 40 minutes of your day already that you are accumulating there. You have videos, you have movies, you have series, you have study time. Now we have more resources for you to complement your classes maybe with a teacher at a school.
True, and you can interchange some fun time, yeah, with some deliberate practice. That also works very well.
The more time passes, the better you get, right? Yeah. So maybe after 2 or 3 years, you start feeling more comfortable, but 5 years, even better, 6 years, even better, 7, 8, 9. So the longer you spend practicing and studying, the better you become. This viewer is saying that when they feel spontaneous, not really in their heads, they speak more fluently. At the same time, how can they be more accurate or precise in their communication?
Yeah, I'd say this is a trap that many learners fall into. There's the whole rapid growth